My name is Adam Camacho. I am the proud principal here at SDA. I want to welcome all of you, our parents, friends, community members. We may even have district staff and board trustees join us here in the next roughly hour, we anticipate. Just wanted to let everybody know that this session is being recorded and will be available on our website at about 5 p.m. this evening. So today is February 24, 2021, and here we are. This is kind of a repeat of what we did, through November, December, and prepared for the one of the previous reopening target dates. And while several things have changed, know that my staff spirits are up and really kind of eager and ready to make this transition. And because what we do is serve kids, and we do that really well, as you know. So we're looking forward to making the transition in in the safest way possible, following all of our guidelines. So we do have a robust presentation for you. Thanks to those of you that completed the pre-survey that went out. We had a lot of great questions. We believe that our presentation was informed. Well, the presentation was informed by your questions. We think we've covered. But as we go through, if you have additional questions, we encourage you to put them in the chat box. My APs and I will monitor them and try to answer either verbally or in the chat box itself. And then if there's anything we miss, we will review the meeting. If there's anything additional, any resources or any additional direction that we need to add before we make the presentation live on our website this afternoon, this evening, we'll make sure to add that information there, okay? All right. So that said, again, welcome. Let's move on to our slide. Here's what we're going to cover today. But before I do that, I'd like to introduce my amazing team. As you know, everyone's had to pivot. This is all new. You've heard me say that if you attended Coffee with Camacho this year. We've had several of them. We've had a couple town halls, and it's all been around just distance learning and the potential pivots, and certainly around safety on campus, and certainly around instruction and learning. So. But we have with me, and I want to say thank you. I said all that to say thank you, that this would not be possible without the management, the careful management of all the things that have shifted by my team. So I'd like to introduce Ms. Katie Bendex, who's one of the assistant principals. Dr. Celeste Barnett.
Good morning.
Yeah, and Dr. Jeremy Meadows.
Good morning.
Thanks, you guys. I really appreciate your support, as does our staff and our community. Here's what we're going to cover in today's agenda. We're going to go over just a quick overview of kind of the 2021 school year. You've been living it with us, so we'll capture that pretty quickly. We'll get into what's happening now on campus. We'll talk about the return to campus, which is really the meat of the presentation, covering the following things: the continuity and of quality and instruction, a day and a week in the life of a student and a teacher, the health and safety of all while on campus, and of course, next steps. We know that this presentation will help inform your decision as to whether you want your student to come back to campus. And so make sure you don't leave today without getting your questions either posted at the very least, but certainly answered. All right, so let's get into this. All right, so what's happening now? If you've been with us before, you already know that we've been celebrating the fact that we've had kids on campus. We know that distance learning is entirely at home. That has not changed. We do have targeted groups on campus for assessment and therapy and social emotional support and so on. We've also continued to expand our extracurricular activities on campus, clubs, and really kind of other activities that teachers have generated themselves, book clubs and things like that. So it's been pretty neat to see all that happening on campus, even at through the current status. Then of course we have athletics. A lot happening with athletics. So I'm going to have Katie jump in on this slide.
Yeah, so just a really brief overview of athletics at SDA. We have a number of teams that are actively practicing. Our cross-country team has already had a contest, and we do have some on the books for this week as well. Tennis and golf for both boys and girls started this week, as did field hockey. We're so excited to see students on campus and our coaches out there with the kids practicing, their physical distancing and mask wearing, but still, interacting with each other and doing what they love. Conditioning right now is our baseball team. Girls basketball and girls lacrosse will start up next week, and then coming soon we have some soccer, softball, and lacrosse. So if you have any questions about athletics, please feel free to reach out to our athletic director, Scott Jordan, or check out the SDA athletics website. Thank you.
All right, so briefly covered what we're currently doing. Our next steps, which, as you know, our target date to welcome students back to campus is really to assess from you what you'd like to do. So your option either to learn entirely at home or to have your student learn at school. And then, of course, as we're planning, we are planning for the 1 day a week model. So much like we did in January, it's exactly the same thing. So if you reflect back to that, it is 1 day per week right now, and with the hopes that we would increase the number of learning school days at school as the guidance permits. Okay. So what's happening next? So part of our presentation, Katie, if you want to go ahead and just move on to the next slide. Obviously, you know that the survey closes this Friday. So we want folks to make an informed decision so that we can properly plan for bringing our students back to campus as safely as possible. So one of the things that we will cover for sure is safety, making sure that we're meeting the public safety guidelines that allow for physical distancing by reducing number of students in classrooms and on campus. We'll cover some mandates, making sure that we are complying with state requirements. Equity is extremely important. All learners are supported with access to the same curriculum, whether at home or in person. And then, of course, the continuity of instruction. The reason we are going to a 1 day per model and remaining in the distance learning platform is to provide uninterrupted learning if students or staff are exposed and need a quarantine, or in the case of an on-campus closure. This allows for the preservation of current master schedules and student schedules. And so, we'll get into that a little bit more, but the continuity, the equity, obviously following the requirements, and above all, making sure that we are following the safety health guidelines is paramount. Okay. So we're going to dive in a little bit to the instruction and social interaction on campus. Based on many of the questions that we got, this seems to be sort of where the majority of parent and student questions are coming from. So I'm going to have Celeste, Dr. Barnett, is going to take us through the next couple slides.
I am ready. Okay, so some of the confusion, or at least questions that we've gotten, or many of the questions we've gotten, have been around what's the learning platform going to be? What's up with saying we're doing a distance learning model? Are teachers going to ignore the kids in the classroom? Are teachers even going to be in the classroom? All kinds of questions. And so we want to address some of that with you here. On this graphic, there's just two things I wanted to point out, especially where those arrows are pointing. It does say that students will engage in learning at home and on campus through a distance learning model. And the model involves learning where teachers instruct in-person and online students simultaneously. So Katie, if you don't mind going to the next slide, please. So I think there's been some confusion. There's been a lot of terminology thrown around, concurrent and simultaneous. And one way I heard a parent explain it to me, which I thought really made a lot of sense to me, is teaching one lesson to two locations or to two audiences. And so that is what it's going to look like. What I want to say about whether we're teaching in the distance learning model is, yes, like Adam said, we do need the distance learning platform. And by that, I would almost more specifically say Google Meet and Google Classroom, that those are going to continue to be used for all students as the means for students to communicate with one another and to communicate, at least when they're at home, on the days they're at home, with their teacher. Can they talk to their teacher in the classroom? Of course they can. Of course they can. So let me go just through a little bit of this here, and then I'll give you a few more details. So every student will be learning from home at least 80% of the time, or 4 days a week, every single one, for at least the first 4 weeks until we are able to transition to 2 days a week. So we want to make sure that we are preserving the academic integrity and the equity piece for the days that your student is at home, even if they're coming to school 1 day a week. For example, if a class was doing a science lab, I used to be a science teacher, so if they're doing a physics lab in the classroom, and it can't be replicated to a reasonable degree through a simulation or something like that at home, then the students, the day your student is at home, they're not going to be getting an equitable education. We're not at all insinuating that things need to be dumbed down or brought to a lowest common denominator. That's not the model at all. But we do want you to understand that we need to be able to, like Adam said, pivot. If your student or class, or perhaps the whole school, hopefully not, has to quarantine at some point, we have to be able to pivot between these two models pretty quickly. So that's why Google Classroom and Google Meet will continue to be used regardless of where your student is. But will they be staring at the computer screen the entire time and with their headphones on? Probably not, and not forever. But for the first week or so, while teachers are adapting, they may be working on the computer quite a bit. So let me go through this in a little bit more detail. On the days that your student might be in the classroom, for the most part, desks need to be faced forward. That's per guidance, and seats 6 feet apart. So imagine a 6-foot bubble around your student. Katie will be talking more about the safety requirements, and all students and teachers will be wearing masks. We are going to continue with the existing distance learning bell schedule for the remainder of this year. Already talked about the digital platform. And then technology, yes, students will need to bring a Chromebook or a laptop to school with them so that they can interact with the students who are at home, and so that they can access documents that are going to be posted in Google Classroom, so they can participate in some of these amazing technological developments that teachers have learned. Flipgrid, Edpuzzle, Seesaw, there's all these great programs that we hope teachers do continue learning, using for a long time. Not so kids are just staring at the screen, but there's some really great technological advances that teachers have made, and we want all kids to be able to continue to access that. As far as headphones go, that's something, thank you, you can go ahead to the next one, Katie. The headphones, we're still figuring out exactly whether students are going to need to wear headphones at least some of the time to reduce feedback in the classroom. But again, can they talk directly to their teacher? Yes, they can. Small group collaboration, I sort of addressed this a little bit. Students will still continue to do Google Meet breakout rooms, and so that requires having the computer there. Hands-on activities, this is a question we've gotten a lot. We are waiting for more guidance on this, but in general, there are regulations around, again, student space. So if we imagine like students in the wood tech shop or in metal shop, are they going to be able to gather closely around a piece of equipment? No, because we still have to maintain 6 feet distancing. And there are still guidelines, even though it's not quite as big of a concern as it was back in January or even a year ago. The touching of surfaces, we're learning, isn't as big of a transmission methodology as breathing, but it still is a concern. And so sharing equipment is still discouraged. So for those reasons, and for the equity piece, hands-on activities will be somewhat limited. They won't be non-existent, but they will be limited. And then in-person socialization, because we know that's the reason many of you want your kids to come back to campus, they will be able to interact with other students instructionally in the classroom, outside of the classroom. We'll talk about lunch a little bit later. And then, like Adam had mentioned earlier, we still have, even on the days your student is at home, they can come to school for after-school activities, for their athletics, all those different kind of things. Adam, anything I missed you wanted me to touch on in regards to the instructional model?
I think that's fantastic. I think you covered some of the questions that really reflect some of the worries and concerns that folks have. I will just say, as you guys all know, our community knows, our district is flooded with extremely talented teachers, and they are going to do their thing and pivot and learn to work with the situation, and make it as welcoming as possible. That's the SDA way, and your students should expect nothing less.
You just reminded me of something, Adam. If I could just say one more thing real quickly. If you imagine, a little bit less than a year ago when we went into the emergency remote learning, right? And teachers had to do that quick pivot, like Adam said. Think about how much they have revolutionized their instruction and their ability to engage with students within this last year. I know teachers are the most creative human beings in the world. They will continue to evolve their instructional practices, and we're working with them on professional development. So all I ask for is a little bit of grace in the first week or two. It's a very steep learning curve. This transition may not seem like it's a big transition, but it's a huge transition to teach into 2 different locations and with a mask on, and trying to make sure that the kids in the classroom aren't feeling left out and the kids at home aren't feeling left out. So just give them at least a couple of weeks to learn and to grow and to evolve. But we're going to see great things. We're going to see things we haven't even seen yet coming.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
All right, next slide, please. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeremy Meadows, an assistant principal here, and I just wanted to take you through what it would look like for a student to be on campus here, kind of the schedule, what that looks like. It's very similar to what we were planning on doing on January 4th. The target date for 1 day a week is March 8th, and a month later, we also have a target date for 2 days a week, to be April 12th. And so how it works is the survey's out right now, and once we get our data back on Friday, we take a chance to look at it over the next few days. We will then break students into one of 4 groups, and it's important to note that we are grouping students by alphabet and not by grade level. If we did break down by grade level, we would cause overflow in our classrooms because it wouldn't be an even breakdown even at 1 day a week. So let's say, so the next slide will go into a little bit more details, but it's essentially 25% of the students who have said yes would come back 1 day a week, and Friday, all students would learn at home. And here's an example. If I'm assigned to group 3, I would come on Wednesday, and Manny would attend their classes on campus, and then the other 4 days of the week would be distance learning at home.
This is pretty reflective of, it's reflective of what you saw in the fall, heading into January. So this is the same model. Once we get all the results, like I mentioned previously, we will look to split students up so that we're making sure we're following all the guidance, and we can maintain the spacing and so on. And this is just the instructional day, right? So while students on Friday, for example, are learning from home, remember, there's a lot going on campus with athletics, clubs, and so on. So campus is still fairly busy on Friday. And then I wanted to add, there's been some questions about what would happen from the period of time 1:45 to 2:55, like while, let's say, a student is waiting for their sport to start or to participate in their club, for example. They will be able to stay on our campus during that time. We will have them out in our our outdoor quad areas where they can either attend teachers' office hours virtually or in person, or just get homework done, and while they're waiting around in a supervised outdoor area. So that's our plan. We're not asking students to go home during that time who might have to come back for something like at 3 o'clock.
And additionally, during that student learning and support time between 1:45 and 2:55, if there is an academic need and students are interested in meeting with their teachers, if it is pre-scheduled with the teacher, we will have some opportunities for students to receive support during that window. But also want to be mindful that our teachers during that hour block of time are also available to students at home distance learning. So we will have some opportunities for that, but just want you to keep that in mind.
Great, thank you. So before I move on, I just want to quickly welcome Deputy Superintendent Mr. Mark Miller. He's joined us today. Welcome, Mr. Miller. So you've heard us say over and over, and if you followed any of the board meetings, you know that a lot of the conversation revolves around obviously teaching and learning, but right now, given the circumstances around health and safety and logistics and things like that on campus. So this is very highlighted right now, as it should be. But we always operate with safety at the forefront of everything we do, not only physical safety, but also the social emotional safety of our staff and students. Paramount, just to be successful. And I believe that's why we are, because we are compassionate about those things. And we do make every decision that's student-centered with health and safety in mind. So Katie is our AP in charge of safety, has been following all the guidance and all the the changes and so on, and it's likely going to change again. Hopefully it'll continue trending in the way that it's trending, and that's just improvement with the health status of our local area, which will allow more expansion and so on. But I'm going to have Katie take over here the next couple slides. So this is I think reflective of, again, a large part of the questions that we received from parents in our survey leading up to this presentation. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Katie.
Great, thank you. And I did just want to acknowledge the couple of questions in the chat before we move on. For that time period between 1:45 and any athletics activities or extracurriculars happening on campus, students will be able to remain on campus in our two designated locations that we'll talk about in just a moment. But if you have further questions about that, please feel free to reach out. So in terms of the safety lens, we have a couple of areas that we wanted to touch on today, and one of them being safe navigation on campus. That means entering campus, exiting campus, how we're managing our nutrition breaks, our lunch breaks, between classes, walking in our hallways. All of this information is detailed in our family return to campus guide. So I encourage you to review that. I know that it's very long, but there's a lot of really important details that we do expect students to be aware of prior to coming to campus. So want to just briefly touch on arrival and dismissal. So before any student is permitted to come to campus, we must have a family health and safety agreement on file. You only need to complete that once. So if you've already submitted your digital signature and reviewed that health and safety agreement, you will not need to do that again. There are some instructions about where you can verify that you have completed that requirement. Now, every day when students arrive on campus, they will enter through one of two locations, one of them being the lower student lot on the northwest side of our campus, kind of closer to the Sunset side. We will have a staff member there conducting our symptom screening, really just verifying that students have completed their symptom screening. And then also one at our main entrance where you see our beautiful mural. We will have staff members there as well. Now, when students arrive, they will be required to show that they have participated in their symptom screening through Catapult, which you can either download the Catapult app or it's on the student start screen. We've been using Catapult for the last number of weeks, and it's been really successful and really smooth for us. There are some instructions in the family guide for completing that symptom screener. It's 2 questions and should be really smooth when students arrive. They'll just show the green check mark either on their device or on their Chromebook, and then they'll be permitted to enter campus. We will have school staff at the entrances and then the exits at the end of the school day to help students, load up in their car or come on into school so that we can limit any congregating before and after school. As usual, students with an unscheduled first period or fourth period should not remain on campus. We will have staff members manning those entrances at the start of second period as well for any student that has a free first period. Now, between classes, we are going to be following what we're calling the rules of the road. Each hallway on campus has a line down the middle of it with some arrows to help students and staff remember that we will be walking on the right side of the hallway to, again, avoid any congregation or bumping into each other as you're passing between classes. We ask that everyone enters buildings through the most direct door to their location that they're headed, and obey the signs that are enter only and exit only. Our restrooms have posted capacities, and we will be monitoring restrooms so that those capacities are adhered to. We have directional stickers on the ground for lines outside of the restrooms. During nutrition and lunch, our nutrition services will be providing bagged meals and snacks through our Mosaic Cafe. Again, we have directional markers. We have a whole system down. Our students that are currently on campus for those targeted supports are accessing our nutrition services, so things are pretty smooth up there. We will have free on-campus lunch available for students. We always encourage our students to remain on campus during lunch. We try to have some activities, some music playing to encourage students to remain on campus, but our lunch will remain open campus. So if students exit campus during lunch, when they do return back to campus, there will be no symptom screening requirement because they've already completed their daily check-in. Of course, physical distancing will be monitored during lunch. We have a number of campus supervisors, administrative staff, and support staff that will be out and about. Students will need to remain 6 feet apart. As they're eating, masks can be removed, but when they are not actively eating, masks must be on. Again, just a reminder about that safe navigation on campus in hallways. We have directional stickers. And again, masks are required at all times on campus unless actively eating. The only space on campus that will be one way are the shops. So our shop hallways are pretty tight, and we do have the option to have an entrance on the west side of the shops. So it will be one way in, and then students will exit the shops on the eastern side of the shops and walk down the fire road. That'll be really helpful during passing periods, so we just have one flow of traffic there. As you can see on this map as well, the green stars indicate where our student symptom screening will take place, and the red stars are where staff symptom screening will take place. Those orange circles there are where our overflow space will be for any students that will be outdoors for instruction. Kind of going back to that 1:45 to 2:55 period of time, those locations will be available for students to have a table, extension cords, power. Now in that window of time during student learning and support, we will not have direct supervision, but we will have our campus supervisors patrolling. Some additional safety measures in place are just our attendance tracking. Your students' safety and well-being is our #1 priority always. Attendance, I know, can sometimes, be a hassle when we're calling in and verifying absences, but especially during this time, as we're discussing an expanded return to campus, our attendance is going to be more important now than ever. We will have 2 codes for attendance. A #1 code for students that are present in class in the digital sense, but they're at home, and then a 4 code for students that are physically present on our campus. Now, having those two differentiated codes will be helpful for us and for you in the event that we do need to know who is physically here on campus at the drop of a hat. And then also our teachers will be monitoring, whether it be through seating charts or sign-up sheets, where students are sitting in the classroom. Teachers will be assigning seating in a way that maximizes physical distancing in the classroom. All right. Again, teachers will be providing those seating charts. We have a minimum of 6 feet between student seats and 6 feet between student and teacher desks. So we do have room capacities posted. Those are being verified with our newest guidance for that 6 feet. We do have all of that happening right now. Our ventilation systems we have HEPA filters that have been placed in every single instructional space. And then our ventilation systems include filters that, in conjunction with that HEPA filter, achieve well above adequate air filtration in every classroom that we have operating. Just a fun fact, the coils in our HVAC system are being cleaned as we speak, so we're really dialing everything in. Pop-up tents will be available for our teachers should they be interested in providing outdoor opportunities for learning. We have a sign-up system, so you may, when coming to campus, you may see pop-up tents all over campus. You may see students sitting out with their teachers, but that will be an available option. Again, as has been the case since we came back this school year, all staff and students are required to wear masks at all times unless they are actively eating. We have many masks available on campus here should one break or a student or staff member arrive without a mask. Hand sanitizer is available in all classrooms, and we do have our portable hand washing stations available. Our COVID safety plan will be posted on our district website. We have had a number of meetings to review this. Just want to thank everyone that has been involved in that, and we are feeling good and ready to go. I've linked here, and we will provide an active link along with this presentation to our SUHSD Safe Reopening site, and also linked the Reopening In-Person Learning Framework for schools, and of course our SDA Return to Campus Guide for families that I referenced before. In terms of any possible exposure, illness, or contact tracing, we do have a system, a district-wide system that we have been working closely with the district office, our district nurse, and our site health technician to ensure that all contact tracing, any students experiencing symptoms, everything is done with the utmost care and open communication. Want to thank Ms. Pandora Johnson, our health technician, who has been here on campus screening staff members and visitors and any students that are experiencing symptoms as they return to campus. She has just been wonderful, and her knock-knock jokes are quite adorable. And mandatory testing for all staff will continue, and we have a bi-monthly rotation where staff are required to submit some COVID testing, and then testing will be made available to any student that tests positive due to a district exposure or contact. Our student symptom decision tree is posted on, it's linked in our family guide. It's posted on the district website. It has a wealth of information. Our site health technician and our district nurse sends this out to any parent or student that is experiencing symptoms or has been a close contact, whether in the community or here on site. Encourage you to review that as we do have things pretty dialed in there. Everything is informed by the CDC and CDPH guidance. Okay.
That's it?
I know. I'm sorry. Need to catch my
Just
breath.
kidding.
So I see some questions in the chat. Faith, I see yours coming up here, that desks are 6 feet apart. The slide says distance will be to the maximum extent possible. So yes, while we have our desks 6 feet apart, let's say, for example, there are 6 students in the classroom. That doesn't mean that we are going to group them in the 6 closest desks. We may have students sitting in different corners of the room where the distance may be 16 feet instead of 6 feet. But our desks, our student seats are 6 feet apart. But that doesn't mean that there will be a student in every seat. I hope that makes sense.
Yep. Katie referenced the SDA Expanded Return to Campus Guide for Families. That is a robust guide. Would encourage you to just peruse that again if you still have questions around the safety measures and everything that's in place. So I can assure you that we are ready, as you've heard from our district leadership, including board members at their meetings. We are prepared. We have been well supported. Our filtration, ventilation meets the standards. So we are comfortable and ready to go, and we hope that our plan reflects that. If you have any remaining questions that we can answer, we're happy to do that. If there are some more technical questions that we may have to defer to those that directly oversee. I'm looking at some of the questions here, but is there any more we can answer there, Katie, from your lane? I know the chat box is going. I don't want to let things get too far back before we move on. Celeste or Jeremy, do you guys see anything there that we need to address really quick? Just a quick review.
There's a question about the filtration in the classroom. What level of MERV do we have?
Okay. Yeah, you want to hit that, Katie, at all?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, SDA is lucky to be one of the sites that in a number of our buildings, we will be receiving the pleated MERV 12 filters. Again, Principal Camacho and I sat in an HVAC meeting where we did review each of our instructional spaces and looked at, where we are meeting standards, and every one of our instructional spaces that will be utilized have good to excellent air filtration. So we were really thrilled to hear that, but still, that said, we're still getting improvements. So we're in a good place right now, and we also have more coming. So we feel really confident with that, and you'll see, all over campus little HEPA filters in addition to the filtration, the ventilation that you can't see.
Celeste, would you mind, before we go on here, I think there was a question about kind of just the survey status right now. Do you mind just being clear about what that is?
Absolutely. So we're about halfway through the survey window, so keep that in mind. At this point, as of last night, about 37% of SDA families have responded to our survey. Of those families who have responded, we have about 72% who have indicated that they plan to send their student to campus to learn 1 day a week. To be honest with you, this is about where we were when we did the same or similar survey in November. We're about halfway through the window, and we had at that time like 72, 75% saying they should come back. You need to keep in mind that families who don't respond to the survey will be opted into distance learning. And so that number, that 72%, will probably come down at least a bit. We will see. But keep in mind also that if a family, it's a little bit different than last time when we did the survey, if a family chooses to stay at home and then later, once their child decides it's safe now, or their teachers have been vaccinated, or for whatever reason they feel safe sending their student to campus, you will be able to opt back to campus. So our guiding principle right now, or our guiding wish for you is, Ethan, do you mind muting? Ethan, can you mute your phone, please? Okay, it got quiet. Thank you. If you could, when you answer the survey, if you could think about what your plan is for your student on March 8th. It will be incredibly helpful for us to have accurate numbers for the first couple of weeks of school. And if later you need to change your response for any reason, we will work with you on that. It's not a binding, locked in commitment. We'll work with you.
Awesome. We'll review that again too. Just a quick highlight on that exact, because that has been a common question. So thank you for that, Celeste. I appreciate that. Okay. So as I've said, we can't do any of this without our talented teachers. So Katie, go ahead and move on to the next slide. So that said, as we navigate through this from the management side, some staff for whatever reason, a good reason, may need to take leave or will not be teaching from within their classroom. And obviously we're collaborating on ways to ensure the continuity of learning for when teachers take an approved leave. As you know, and has been communicated, we do anticipate some vacancies. And as such, our HR is definitely advertised for qualified substitutes. We've been able to meet the need for the students that have been here on our pods and our learning hubs. So that's not been an issue at all for us. And then, of course, HR is feverishly working on getting our teachers vaccinated. So there'll be more information on that in the days ahead. But there's a lot of work being done to see when we can make that happen for our staff. So looking forward to that. Next slide, Katie, please. Okay, so this is, this brings us to just kind of, the ball is now in your court. We hope that our presentations are clear and concise enough so that you can make an informed decision. We know this is not an easy one. My commitment, as those of you that I've met that have seen us in person or been with us virtually, what you see is what you get. I am as transparent, I think, as can be. If you have any remaining questions, make sure you send them our way, and we'll make sure to get your questions answered. We want you to make the best decision for your student, your family, right now, given the bigger picture. We anticipate, and our hope is that things will continue to get better, as such, we'll continue to pivot. As I've said from the very beginning, there is an educator in our district, in the world, I promise you, that does not want to come back to campus and teach and get back to what they do and what they're passionate about. Our guiding, principles right now have been very grounded in the health and safety of everyone. So we are ready, and if we need to pivot again, we will do that, and we'll do it successfully, just as we've done along the way. So here's some next steps for us. Our district is awaiting authorization from CDPH. The application is obviously there on our expanded return to campus. Our target date, to be clear, I saw one of the questions in there again earlier. I knew we would hit it again. Our target return date is March 8th. That is in the survey. You'll see it there. And then, we will do this successfully. I guarantee you that. We may have some hiccups, but we'll cross those bridges and make sure that we can do this successfully. And then the target date for expanding to 2 days per week is April 12th. So that would be the Monday right as we come back from our spring break, our scheduled spring break. So March 8th, 1 day a week, in hopes to expand to 2 days a week on April 12th, right after spring break. So you should have received the expanded return to campus survey last Friday. I dropped it in the chat box earlier as well. With any communication, if you find that you're not, if you check your junk email and so on, if you find that you're not receiving any communication, everything we send out is always on our website under an announcement. So you can always find it in 2 different places. But if you find that you have an issue receiving regular communication, please reach out to our school, and we'll make sure that we have proper emails in our student system. Okay, so the survey, as a reminder, will close this Friday, the 26th. This is I would love to, it's not a hard close, but this is what I need you to do. Make a decision by Friday so that we can properly plan. We have that 1 week runway to make sure that kids are assigned a proper day so that we can maintain the distancing and meet all the safety guidelines. So that's what we need. And Katie will touch, as Celeste already said, if you decide you want to stay at home, things improve. There's always a pathway back to campus. We want your kids here, and so we would make that happen. So you've been asked two things. Same thing I said to you in our presentation leading into January. You're being asked the same thing right now. So you have two possible choices. One, my student will opt to continue with distance learning entirely from home with their current schedule. Or two, my student will opt to return to campus with their current schedule at 1 day per week. Those assignments will obviously be sent out late next week. Okay?
All right. So next, I want to direct you to a document that we have compiled based on some of your, sorry.
That's our bell, sorry.
That's your bell, Adam. That is your bell. You did this to us. So we have compiled an FAQ document from your questions through that Q&A, but also some emails that we're getting and some phone calls that we're getting. So encourage you to review that FAQ. We've created a QR code. I'll actually pop it in the chat as well. And these FAQs are specifically directed around your decision and your selection on this survey. So if you want some additional, health and safety details, again, please refer to the family guide, but that FAQ is going to help inform your decision. So as we've touched on, if your student is not yet ready to return to campus, but may be ready at a later date, as Adam mentioned, we are seeking the most accurate data for March 8th. We would like you to, in this case, select that your student will be at home 100% of the time. Now, that said, we will not have another survey prior to Q4, but that's okay, because if you change your mind and your student is at home and now they want to come back to school, and maybe Q4 is that date for you, maybe it's later, remember we have our on-campus support for students button on our SDA website. It's on the top right of the website. When you click that button and submit, it prompts communication from an administrator on our site. So we'll reach out and we'll see, maybe it's that your student does want to return to in-person instruction 1 day a week, or maybe it's just that they're interested in getting onto campus in that time, in that extracurricular athletics club realm. So we will reach out if you respond through that button. Now, your survey response, like we just said, does not lock you in, because you can go in through the button and request on campus. However, if you respond to the survey this week and don't change your mind about your learning location, then that is your learning location for the remainder of the year. So if your student opts to remain at home and they remain at home all year, we do not need another update for Q4. If your student is on campus for 1 day per week and we happen to scale up to 2 days per week and you don't want to change, you want to continue on campus 2 days per week, then you're good. Your survey response locks you in. And then lastly, another question that we've received a few times is, if your student is learning from home 100% of the time, can they still participate in on-campus activities like extracurriculars and clubs and athletics? And yes, absolutely yes. Everything that we have going right now, those extracurriculars, those athletics, they're going to continue as we expand our return to campus. So those opportunities will not be diluted because we're returning to campus in this 1 and possible 2 day model. So if you have any further questions, as you're reaching out to administrators, we may be adding to this FAQ document. So please continue to refer back to it, review it with your student, with your family, as you guys make your selection.
That was fantastic. Thanks to my team. I appreciate you guys very much. Very well planned and thought out. I'd like to just say this in kind of our closing. It's been an extremely fast hour. We got going, 2 minutes after the top of the hour. And it feels like we just started, but we just gave you a lot of information. The beauty of it is that this is being recorded. You can go back at your leisure, stop, record, have dinner, whatever, go work out and hit it again. So we just want you to be extremely informed. And I will say this. I know that there are many opinions on from every direction, we listen to every voice because it matters. You matter. How we serve you and our community is extremely important to me and my team and all of our entire staff. We're here to do the best job we can with the guidance that we have, and as I've always said, we've been ready. And we are now. So rest assured that given the guidance and what we can do, we are there. We're pushing the envelope, but with safety at the forefront of that, like I said earlier. So it's a pleasure to serve you all. We miss your kids, as we've said many times. We have parents that are teachers in our district here. I mean, they would tell you the same thing. So we can't wait to see them, and we look forward to just getting back to as normal as possible and expanding the opportunities. I'm hopeful that things will continue to improve in our county, and while we have these initial target dates, I'm hopeful that we'll meet those as well, and that maybe even later in the spring, as we near summer, and that maybe there's an opportunity for even more expansion. So if that happens, if the opportunity is there, we will take full advantage of it, again, with safety at the forefront. We miss you all. Go Mustangs.